Friday, continuing this series on addiction. 23 million Americans are addicted. 18,000 deaths by alcohol. 20,000 deaths by illicit drugs. 70% of all traffic accidents involving alcohol or drugs. 69% of all drownings. 83% of all fire fatalities. Don't tell me that addiction doesn't have its cost. 23 million, nearly 10% of all adults are addicted. 70% of the traffic deaths caused by addiction. 69% of the drownings. 83% of the fire fatalities. Divorce, abuse, crime, birth defects, liver disease, heart disease, brain disease, and aging. All because of a behavior called addiction. Gambling, perfectionism, work, electronic devices, sexual. All can be addictive things. All can be damaging things. And listen to these statistics. 36% of the homeless people are addicted. 138,000, let's try again. The cost of addiction, $138 billion because of smoking addiction. $161 billion because of illicit drug addictions. $185 billion because of alcohol addiction. That's $484 billion that it costs because of addiction. What are the stages of addiction? Denial, loss of control, and desperation. The Bible tells us many, many times how dangerous addiction just to alcohol alone is. Written before drugs were such a factor. If you say, well, what about the Bible saying Jesus had wine at the wedding, or what if Jesus turned the water into wine? Well, for every scripture you show me where it appears that a little bit of drinking was okay, I'll show you 10 references where it will tell you that addiction, over drinking, is a terrible sin. 10-1, the Bible will show that. What does the Bible say about addiction? What does it say about alcohol, even before drugs were such a factor? Listen to these words and see if you've ever heard any alcohol company use these in their advertisements for their alcohol. It's a mocker, a brawler, brings out poor and poverty, woe and sorrow, contentions or fighting. It's a viper, a serpent, perverse, wickedness, nakedness, incest, swindling, strife, contempt, and folly. You ever heard anybody advertise alcohol as being a mocker or brawler, bringing about poor and poverty, woe and sorrow, contentions, viper, serpent, perverse, nakedness, incest, swindling, strife, contempt, or folly? I don't think so. They don't want to tell you the downside of alcohol. They just want to tell you the good side of alcohol. Jesus in Luke chapter 21 verse 34 said, "Be on guard, that your hearts may not be weighed down with dissipation and drunkenness and worries of life, that the day may come on you suddenly like a trap." What's the context of that scripture verse? The end times. He says, don't get caught off guard because of drunkenness. Don't get caught off guard because your senses have been tempered by alcohol, drugs, or other perversions of addiction. The Bible's very clear. A lot of things can come out of addiction. Divorce, abuse, crime, birth defects, liver disease, heart, lungs, aging. Terrible things. Terrible things. 80% of the people in prison today are there because of some drug-related problem or crime. 80%. You see, it's very, very clear. If 31% of the homeless and 80% of those in prison are related to addictions and drug and alcohol abuse, we ought to be teaching our children. We ought to be setting the example by abstaining from these things. And we ought to continue to call it sin as it is sin. Now, I don't want to just limit myself to saying that it has to be alcohol or drugs. Gambling, sexual perversion, perfectionism, workaholics, addicted to electronic devices. They're all addictions, and they all have their cost. They all have their price. They all take away from our Christian witness. Think about it. It's your thought for the day. God bless you.